I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book Annihilating Anorexia, no other than Miss Michelle Mason. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Michelle, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, hello, Daniel, and hello to your listeners. Yes, my name is Michelle Mason. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, in the US, and I'm a first time author. I'm an independent author. I wrote Annihilating Anorexia and published it on July 1st, 2023. And it's the story of when I had anorexia. Now, I will share that I'm a 59-year-old woman and I had anorexia when I was 16 years old. So 1981. And back then, there wasn't really a lot of information about anorexia. And so I talk about the events leading up to when I got anorexia, the time I spent in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 3 months, and then the recovery after. And so taking readers through the journey, I tried to be very careful about not just saying I did this, I did that. I really tried to make it a story that would engage readers and especially speak to those who are struggling with anorexia. And I want to point out that the eating disorders in general are pretty much an epidemic around the world. And sales of my book are kind of a testament to that, as well as many other books about anorexia that have been published in the last few years. If you look at the dual issues of the pandemic, the recent worldwide pandemic, plus social media, those are environmental things that can really make someone that's susceptible to an eating disorder really kind of exacerbate the illness. And so it is, in my opinion, an epidemic. And I think that talking about it is important. It's not the easiest thing to talk about. And there some societies, especially in the US, there's a shame factor associated with it because it's a mental illness. And I think that we're breaking down those barriers around mental illness slowly but surely, but still, it's difficult for some people to talk about, for people that are struggling with it, especially young people that are still trying to figure out who they are. They're still trying to get their confidence and their independence. To have to struggle with this, it's really a difficult thing. And so as hard as it is to talk about, if I can help people by sharing my story and showing people, look, I'm still here. About 43 years later, I'm still here. It is possible to recover, and it is possible to have a great life.
Michelle Mason, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world to empower people out there. So this will be a memoir.
Yes.
So there will be a follow up for this book.
Potentially. And as someone that has actually worked in healthcare, my career was in healthcare. I have a master's degree in business, and I was considered a thought leader in therapeutic nutrition during my career. I'm not a doctor by any means. I'm not a clinician by any means, but I read a lot, and there's so much research coming out about anorexia. There's so many things that are being learned about it. And so, in my opinion, it's a brain-based illness. And as new information and new research comes out, I would absolutely consider going back and adding more and enhancing it. I have an epilogue in the book which talks about articles in various periodicals that talk about anorexia and just the sheer numbers of people that it's affecting. I think in the United States, it's about 10% of the population, which is 30 million people. In Canada, where you are, it's 7% of the population, about 3 million people. And as more information comes out, just helping us understand it and taking the stigma away, I think may go a long way towards hopefully, at the very least, getting people more comfortable to talk about it, and ideally finding some kind of a cure for it or some kind of a relief for people who are struggling with it. And so that epilogue that I wrote definitely could be updated in years to come. And I have to tell you, Daniel, my heart goes out to people that struggle with this illness, because it's really horrific. It has a 20% mortality rate, and it's a brain based, and so it's very difficult to recover. And for some people, it's a lifelong struggle, which really breaks my heart. And so those kinds of things. And so as we learn more about the brain and mental illness and things like that, hopefully we can have some good news in treating this illness.
So at this moment, do you have a clinical trials for this disease in treating it?
I know that there are clinical trials. There are clinical trials that I've read so far that have to do with following anorexics through their lifetime, and what are the long-term implications of having anorexia. And I think one of the things is osteoporosis, because when you're growing, and anorexia affects mainly teenagers, or I should say the young population between the ages of 12 and 25, females, males, athletes, everybody, all ethnicities, all backgrounds. I say in the book, anorexia does not discriminate. But however, the majority are women, young girls. And so if you look at a young girl and she's still developing, your brain is still growing until you're 25. And so this illness comes in and literally ravages the body. For myself, my own personal example, I'm 5'11", and one of the symptoms of anorexia is you lose 25% of your body weight. I lost 30% of my body weight. I lost 50 pounds in 8 months. And so at 5'11", my low point was 96 pounds. And I looked like a walking skeleton. And so some of those clinical trials are studying what long-term effects, if any, would it have on the body that's still developing and is just being ravaged by this disease. You're depriving yourself, obviously, of all the vitamins and all the nutrients that you need to grow. So I know that is one. And then there are some brain studies where they're studying they're finding that the front areas of the brain, some of the front areas, have a unique profile in anorexics that determine decision making around food, potentially OCD behaviors and things like that create drive some of the ritualistic, odd behaviors that anorexics have. And in my case, they talk about comorbidities with anorexics. And I want to say about 90% of anorexics have depression as a comorbidity. And in my case, I had depression and OCD. So it was very, very difficult.
So how did you explore the psychological aspects of anorexia in the book, in your memoir?
Well, I give a lot of examples of when I was in the hospital and OCD behaviors that I would engage in. For example, one of the really embarrassing things is in the cafeteria one day, we were having lunch, and one of the interesting things is, again, this is 1981, there were no eating disorder treatment centers until 1985. And so I was just in the general mental health unit of a hospital in a small city. And it was a little bit like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If you've ever seen that movie, just everybody with a mental illness, and a lot of people suffering, really. But there was no one else that looked like me. And so I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know what anorexia was, but I knew I was in trouble. And so I would do these weird behaviors. And I'm sure anybody that knows anorexia that's listening to this, I would hide food. I would try and throw food away. I would, one day in the cafeteria, as I said, I was, for some reason, and I don't know why I did this, I went to there was like a silver rack like they used to have on the airlines where you slide the trays in there. And I went and I started pulling out all these trays of lunches that either had been eaten or hadn't been eaten, that had either been touched or not touched. And I don't know why I was doing it, but it was OCD. I had to pull out every single one and look at it. And a healthcare professional came up to me and said, Michelle, you don't need to do that. We have plenty of food. We can get you a tray. And I was embarrassed. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And so it was just things like that. And in the book, I give anorexia a voice. And it's actually a character in the book. And it's telling me crazy stuff to do, Daniel. And I do it because you can't stop. So it's just crazy. And the other thing is that one of the symptoms of anorexia, of an anorexic, is that they have a distorted body image. And in my case, that was not true. I would look in the mirror and I saw myself shrinking. I saw it, but I couldn't do anything about it. There was nothing I could do. It was like anorexia is a riptide, and once it sucks you in, you don't have any power. And the irony is that you think you're in control, but you're not. And so one of the things that's really important is people that get anorexia, it's not something where you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to change and eat. And in my opinion, it definitely needs intervention. It definitely needs a third party to come in and say, you need help. There's no way I could have gotten better on my own.
Definitely. So, what pivotal moments or events that you realize that you need to seek recovery?
Well, I was 16 years old, and my parents were, let's just say, my parents were not supportive, nurturing people. They were not from that school. They were very critical of me and my brothers. And my mother in particular, both of my parents used physical discipline on us. And my mother in particular with me, she used a lot of verbal abuse. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're too fat. Everything I did, she found fault with. And and my parents passed. So that was a big part of the book as well. And a big reason why the book came out, my parents died right before the pandemic. It all came out again after burying it for 4 decades, to the point where I didn't even believe that I had it. And then it all came out. So my father, I think, said something to my mom, you got to take her to the doctor. And so in March of 1981, it's cold out, there's snow, it's dark. I come home from school and my mom goes, we're going to the doctor. And we're in the car and she's complaining the whole way about having to take me. She don't, it's just not convenient for her. And we get to the doctor's office and the doctor just asks me to stand and hold my arms up to a T, stand straight and put my arms out like that. And then he went around to the back and looked at me. This was our family doctor. He went around to the back and looked at me, and he was quiet for a moment. And then he said to my mother, she has to go to the hospital now. And we went back and we packed my bag and I went to the hospital, and 3 months later I got out.
That's amazing story. What role did therapy or medical treatment play in your recovery?
Huge. And again, it's a reiteration of I couldn't have done it on my own. My family, my home life was not supportive. And one of the big things with going into the hospital, I was in the medical center for 2 weeks, and they kind of, dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's to say it's nothing else. um, and looking at my profile, my age, I fit all the criteria for having anorexia. And so the doctors got it right. And after 2 weeks in the medical, after they had said, yeah, we pretty much confirm our diagnosis, Michelle has anorexia. And so then at that point, and then I was doing all the weird food stuff. I was hiding the food, throwing it in the garbage. I thought I was really clever. And after 2 weeks, I went into the mental health unit for the rest of the 3 months, during March, April, May. And during that time, they started giving me antidepressant medicine. And that was very helpful because I was kind of in the psychological space of drowning. And it was so bad that there were mornings when I woke up where I go, oh, I wish I hadn't woken up. It would just be so much easier to not have to do this again. That's how bad anorexia is. So they started me on antidepressant medicine, and that helped me kind of get it together, Daniel, to just get my whatever inner strength I had or whatever spirituality I had. It got me above water, metaphorically. And then also coupled with that, there were a couple healthcare providers in the unit that kind of took a special interest in me. Maybe they felt bad for me. They made mention that my mom never came to visit me for the 3 months that I was in there, and maybe they felt bad about that. I don't know. But there were a couple that sat with me and really helped me. And I talk about that in the book. And those two individuals may never know the impact they had on me, but it was a huge impact. And they helped me to see that, yeah, I'm worthwhile. I'm a good person. And they helped kind of build my confidence a little bit and my self-worth. And so those two things together really helped me. But in the end, no one was going to do it for me. I had to do it, and I had to decide. And I finally decided that I'm 16 years old. I haven't even gotten started yet. I can't throw in the towel now as much as I want to. I haven't even started. And so I got a little angry, and that helped me too.
So, Miss Michelle, what coping mechanisms or strategies to help you recover during this?
I cried a
Just
lot. I slept a lot.
That's awesome.
It was pretty much, two steps forward, one step back. The little wins, the little victories, being able to sit down and eat half a sandwich. But a lot of crying and a lot of emotional kind of things coming out that I was not able to really vent at home because of the environment that I lived in.
So, Miss Michelle, at that time, how you redefine your relationship with food and body image?
Well, I can tell you that I recovered permanently. When I got out of the hospital, little bit by little bit, I got back to my healthy weight. I never relapsed. But when I had the anorexia at 16, I lost my innocence. I no longer looked at food the same way ever again. I'm very nostalgic for the days when I was a kid. I'm an athlete and I come from a family of athletes. And I remember when I was a kid, just being able to, I need to hurry up and eat my meal so I can go out and play. And this illness changed my perception of food forever. I have a very healthy respect for it. And as a 59-year-old, I'm intelligent enough to know that I need it to sustain my body. But we have a very healthy respect for each other, me and food.
Very well said, Miss Michelle. Very well said. So, how has your perspective on life, on health, changed after your recovery?
I my perspective on life is I learned how important it is to be accountable for myself. And it's my body, it's my brain, it's my life. And I'm responsible for keeping myself healthy. And I'm responsible, knowing what I know as a survivor of anorexia, to stay healthy so that I can be a good example for other people.
Certainly. So, Miss Michelle, what would be your advice for those people out there suffering from anorexia?
You're not alone. You may want to resist getting help, but you absolutely need help to get better, and you can get better. And for every individual that's suffering from anorexia, you are a human being that has gifts to share with the world. You're important. You're here for a reason. And you need to recover from anorexia. You can do it because you have gifts to share with the world, and you're important and you need to be here.
Yes, people, you are important and you need to be strong and help. Ask for help for the recovery. So, Miss Michelle, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
Well, I think I mentioned at the beginning that I'm an independent author. This is my first book, and also that's why I'm so excited to be on your show, because I can share it with people. Uh, the writing experience, it just came out. uh, I
It's
remember
in your blood.
sitting. I remember sitting outside on the patio one day, and I grabbed a shopping bag and just started writing the chapters down. It just came out. I think the universe just wanted me to write it. I'd been thinking about it for many years, and it just came out. And so, as we had discussed earlier, there would definitely be some updates to this existing book as we learn more about this illness, and also going into next year as we turn the page into 2025. I'd like to start another book. about someone else's story that is very compelling. And so, yes, I hope to continue my writing.
Looking forward for more empowering books like this, Miss Michelle. And to sum up our discussion, what message you want to leave to the leader, leave to the reader, and hope readers about resilience of this disease?
Anorexia is horrific. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's really hard. It's really vicious. It's insidious. It's relentless. It's an illness. Find somebody, anybody that you can talk to and get help, and you can get better. And perhaps, like me, you'll come out even stronger, because I can tell you that this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I was 16 years old. And so, if there is an upside, if there is a silver lining, it made me strong. So, whatever else came my way, nothing was as bad as this. So, I just encourage people to get help. One thing is, with my book, I'm trying to get it into as many libraries as I can. And if you, for some reason, don't feel comfortable ordering it or getting it online at Amazon or whatnot, and you have a library card, go to your library and ask them to get it for you. They should be happy to do so. If not, they can get in touch with my publisher. I'll send them a copy. And that way you can get it at the library, read it for free. And my hope is that it will encourage you. It will show you what I learned, but I empathize with everyone. It's so hard, but you can do it. You're strong, and get some help.
Yes, people. And Miss Michelle Mason, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge to the world. And as I said, looking forward for more empowering books. And you are most welcome to come back and promote them on Book 101 Review. So, Miss Michelle, can you please invite our listeners to support Annihilating Anorexia?
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. So, where they can buy your book, Miss Michelle?
They can purchase Annihilating Anorexia as either a paperback or an ebook at all online retailers, Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, etc. And again, check your library, and if they don't have it, ask them to get it for you.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Michelle Mason, because if you support her, as I said, more empowering books to come. So, Miss Michelle, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon. Again, Miss Michelle, you are most welcome to come back if you have a follow up of this book.